We talk about classic movies on this podcast, so we don't do listicles very often, but those episodes do tend to get more downloads than most of our feature-length reviews do, and since that's very likely to happen with this one too, it's an imperative that I do the best job I can in promoting our longtime sponsor, Sparkplug Coffee. After all, the more ears this episode fills, the greater the chances of pushing some beans. And Sparkplug only sells premium quality beans. Quality beans, I said. Brew with this glorious stuff, and you'll be drinking the best coffee that's ever been in your kitchen. Now, unfortunately, Scandinavians and Sri Lankans, this service isn't worldwide, so you can't get in on this if you live there, but you have to be Canadian or American to get some. Canadians get free shipping, and people in both countries get their orders set on their front porch in about a week, usually less than a week. Be a member of the Autopilot Coffee Club, and you don't even have to remember to order some more, but you can also pause or cancel anytime, so it'll come to you when you need it. But you can quit or you can just pause it. So that makes it convenient and affordable, especially if you've always been the kind to buy takeout every day. That stuff adds up.
Or if you're the kind to use the pods, because those things are expensive.
There you go. The website is sparkplug.coffee/HYES. Our promo code is, in fact, HYES. Using those 4 letters when prompted will win you a one-time 20% discount. So get your cup of joe in hand and settle in for our episode where we talk about 100, or I guess it'll be more than probably, great films about horror, comedy, drama, sports, romance, and Bev...
Action! Have you ever seen...
presents the Not Quite 100 list. Hey everybody, and thanks for letting us go on and on about classic films, as we will yet again today. Have You Ever Seen's original name, the podcast, was the Top 100 Project. And when we started doing this over 12 years ago, we set out to review the American Film Institute's choices for their 1998 and 2007 lists of greatest American movies. Now we do spoiler-filled reviews of whatever piques our curiosity. And by the way, I'm Ryan Ellis, and here is my intrepid wife, Bev.
That's me.
I always forget what intrepid means, but I used it there. I hope it's correct. So what we're going to do today is each pick 100 movies from the list of nominees from AFI's 1998 and 2007 Top 100 lists, their 100 Years, 100 Movies series they did. But none of these will be any of the 123 that actually made it in 98 and or 2007. So no Godfather, Casablanca, Star Wars, Toy Story, Jaws, Citizen Kane, or All About Eve, or Screeching Neighbors. Get ready for that today. A lot of yelly neighbors, despite the fact it's plus 30 out there. Celsius temperatures.
Celsius. It's 35 degrees, I think.
Is that what it is?
Canadian.
Go inside, it's hot. The ones we'll do today are the ones that didn't make the cut, but could have. To be included today, they had to at least be nominated in 1998 and or in 2007. And just for the record, I decided to do the legwork to find out how many of all the movies we could be highlighting today, I'm not sure what you'll pick, we've reviewed at some time or another, and it's 61% of them. I thought it'd be a little bit more, but 61 is pretty good. I count 291 reviews that we've done of the 480 total AFI nominees from those 2 years, with an additional 7 that Chris and I reviewed on our sports movie podcast, Scoring at the Movies, which I don't know if it's online anymore. I was looking just out of curiosity a few days ago, and I didn't find it on Apple Pod. And
Chris was always managing that, wasn't he?
Maybe the domain ran out. Anyway, he and I talked about things like Hoosiers, Field of Dreams, and Breaking Away, and those 7 actually make it 62%. So what we'll do is Bev will name 10, then I'll name 10, then she'll go with another 10, then I will. It'll be effectively 100 down to 91, then 90 down to 81, down to our top 10s. And when we get to that point, we'll rank them from 10 down to 1 and do a more thorough examination of those top 10, that top 10. The other 90 choices aren't necessarily what we think should be 100 or 84 or 32. It's just groupings. And while Bev didn't do it this way, I tried as best as I could to stick to what the AFI used as criteria. So that's critical recognition, major awards that it won, cultural impact, popularity over time, and historical significance. I didn't always go by this criteria, but I tried to keep that stuff in mind. And also with my various groupings of 10, I went with themes. So something that might seem like it's, say, 81st on my list, and a listener hears and says, why is that so low? But it's really just a part of a group. My top 20, though, is more about these are what I think are the best of the best. Okay, so you're up first, Bev, with your bottom 10, number 100, counting down to 91. But if you did it like me, they're not really in order.
They're not in order, yeah. I put mine in alphabetical order, and my first 10 are Ace in the Hole, a movie you love that you introduced me to, Airplane, which we just covered, All That Jazz, Animal House, Apollo 13, Babe, Badlands, the 1989 Batman, Being John Malkovich, and Big.
All right, well, I have a few of those, quite a few of those. I think 4 or 5 at least.
Oh, we're going to have tons of repeats, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course, and I don't have other ones, though. But before I get to my 100 down to 91, I'm going to start by spending a minute talking about 6 or 7 flicks that I don't personally love, but their influence, cultural impact, awards, all that stuff do make them worthy, so I'll mention them, but they're not my top 100. The Rocky Horror Picture Show, Breakfast at Tiffany, she said, I think I... Harold and Maude, A Christmas Story, which I love a lot, but didn't quite make the list. Fatal Attraction, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and The Thin Man. All of them have the rep, but I didn't pick them. So my 100 down to 91, and here's my first theme, and it's the 10 Best Picture winners, and almost Best Picture winners, of course, of the Oscar. And we've reviewed every one of these. The 1932 star-studded Best Picture winner, Edmund Goulding's Grand Hotel. The 1945 Best Picture winner, about an alcoholic, Billy Wilder's The Lost Weekend. George Roy Hill's The Sting, won the top prize in 1973. It's one of them I'm surprised didn't make the list either time. Kramer vs. Kramer was Robert Benton's best film, and It was the Academy's Huckleberry in 1979. Jim Brooks' Terms of Endearment got it in 1983. Dustin Hoffman was in another Best Picture winner in 1988 with Barry Levinson's Rain Man, and Mel Gibson's Braveheart had its name called in that classic movie year of 1995. The 3 near misses for Best Picture I'm including in this so I could have 10 movies. I didn't quite have enough otherwise with the Best Picture category. And they all must have been at least second or third, I think. We don't know, we'll never know, but I think so in the balloting. Were Mark Rydell's On Golden Pond in 81, The Great LA Confidential by Curtis Hanson in 97, and Ang Lee's Brokeback Mountain in 2005. And if I didn't decide to put most of my top 100 into categories like this, The Sting, Kramer vs. Kramer, Rain Man, LA Confidential, probably Brokeback, would be way higher than what is effectively my 91 to 100. Okay, so you're 90 down to 81.
So I'm on to the B's now, moving from B to C. Start with The Big Chill, Boogie Nights, one of your favorites.
Yep.
Boys in the Hood, Brazil, Terry Gilliam's movie that I don't love, but I would put on the list. Breakfast Club, Broadcast News, great one. I also, of course, chose Brokeback Mountain. Bull Durham, Casino, and Chicago.
I bumped Broadcast News. Can you believe that?
What?
I wasn't doing it with the categories, and I deleted stuff and moved things around. Not deleting deliberately, but moved things around. And then I was 3 or 4 movies short. I wonder if I maybe accidentally deleted that one, and that's why it's not in this. All right, my 90 down to 81 are 10 classic comedies, pure unadulterated laughers, which are William Powell playing a forgotten man in Gregory LaCava's My Man Godfrey, Chaplin making fun of Hitler and the Great Dictator, Woody Allen's troubling but still wonderful Manhattan, the hilarious farce we covered back in July, Zaz's Airplane, Zucker, Abrams, and Zucker. Then we've got another spoof master, really maybe the greatest of all time at this, Mel Brooks, who made 2 outstanding comic films, his Broadway farce The Producers, which I know you don't love that much, and his brilliant satire of Universal monster movies, Young Frankenstein, which if I didn't do categories would certainly be higher than this part of the podcast. And no, I did not include Blazing Saddles on this list. I'm not that big a fan of that movie. And this category has 4 more great titles to go. The one where Garbo laughs, Ernst Lubitsch's Ninotchka, and 3 movies that I'd rate higher than this if I weren't grouping flicks the way I've been doing. Cary Grant and Irene Dunn as angry exes in Leo McCarey's The Awful Truth. Cary Grant and Rosalind Russell as less angry exes in Howard Hawks' His Girl Friday. Spoiler alert on both of those. Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. The anger is greatly diffused by the end of those movies. Not so angry at each other anymore. And not such exes anymore.
Spoilers!
I just gave a spoiler. And a title I know will be in Bev's top 10, at least I almost certainly will be. Rob Reiner's modern classic, When Harry Met Sally. And there are reviews of each of those 10 great ones somewhere on this channel. All right, Bev's 80 down to 71.
All right. Starting with Hal Ashby's Coming Home. A movie that used to be one of my favorites and I still like a lot. Dangerous Liaisons. Deliverance. Dog Day Afternoon, Empire Strikes Back. Mm-hmm. Again, not one of my favorites, but it obviously belongs on the list. Aaron Brockovich, which we just covered. Mm-hmm. Another one of yours and my favorite movies, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Fatal Attraction, you had that one too.
No, I didn't. I said...
Oh, that's right. It was in your honorable mentions. And Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Most of those will be
Gen
on my
X
list.
Classic.
Yeah, most of those are on my list somewhere later on. My 80, counting down to 71, are 10 crime classics. I have more than just 10 crime movies, but I did put these in this category. I'll start with the Clint Eastwood cop thriller directed by Don Siegel, Dirty Harry, Orson Welles' phenomenal Touch of Evil, which I probably should have had higher, but it's in this category, followed by Otto Preminger's classic noir with Gene Tierney being loved by everybody in the movie, Laura. Ridley Scott's Lady Road Rage picture, Thelma and Louise, deserves to be honored, as does Richard Brooks's In Cold Blood. I'm not the hugest fan of David Lynch's Blue Velvet, but I won't deny its impact. I'm a little bit surprised it didn't make maybe the second list. Then we've got a couple of action movies. Harry Ford insists he didn't kill his wife, and Andy Davis's The Fugitive, and the greatest of the Connery Bond films, Goldfinger, with Guy Hamilton behind the camera on that one. And the final two in this category, Edward G. Robinson's big breakout, Little Caesar, by Mervyn LeRoy, and the one that put that grapefruit squashing Jimmy Cagney on the map, Wild Willie Wellman's The Public Enemy, and we have reviewed all of these films as well. Bev's 70 down to 61. And by the way, as we go through, if we want a little bit of sidebar, I think something shouldn't be on my list or yours. I guess we could say that, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead, contribute if you want to, the future groupings. Anyway, 70 to 61 for you.
All right, starting with one of my favorite movies when I was in college, Fight Club, a Pixar classic, Finding Nemo, a movie that blew me away when I finally saw it for the first time for this podcast, Freaks. I also picked The Fugitive, Ghostbusters, which wasn't on your comedy list, which makes me suspect it's somewhere else on this list.
It is.
I picked Gladiator, Good Will Hunting. I also picked Grand Hotel, which you picked as well, Grease, and The Great Escape.
Yeah, again, most of those are going to be mentioned at some point in the next little while by me. My 70 down to 61 is just a group of miscellaneous flicks. This started out as the war movie section, but I couldn't find enough to fill out the 10. I had something like 7 at one point, including The Empire Strikes Back was in that, because it's a war in a way. But I couldn't find those 10, so now I've just got 10 random flicker shows. And I started off with 2 brilliant, war movies. So I will do war briefly here. Glory and Paths of Glory. So we've got Edward Zwick and Stan the Man Kubrick directing those. Plus also, you mentioned this before, the Nam Was Hell PTSD love story, Hal Ashby's Coming Home. We've also got Harold Lloyd's silent comedy extravaganza of stunts and comedy, Safety Last. Sofia Coppola's best movie by a mile, Lost in Translation. We just covered, what was it
Virgin
called?
Suicides.
Right, not that long ago. And I think I said there that is easily the best movie she's made, Lost in Translation. Another, the old guy just can't be with the young woman story, William Wyler's Roman Holiday. And yet another love story that doesn't end romantically, although they're the same age, I think, Robert Altman's McCabe and Mrs. Miller. We've also got a movie I originally had in my top 20, Martin Ritt's Hood, perhaps the best work of Paul Newman's career, if not the very best. It's right in the top 2, 3, 4. And I wrap up this section with 2 movies that I don't love, but here's a good example of me honoring their criteria that the AFI wanted their voters to think about when they made their picks in 98 and 07. And those 2 motion pictures, and I think you agree with me when we covered both of these, are movies that I think should have probably made it, whether we like it or not. Disney's Mary Poppins and Cecil B. DeMille's The 10 Commandments.
God, they are culturally impactful.
And so famous, so successful.
Yeah. May not love either of those movies, but how do you discount those from the conversation of great American films that have had tremendous influence?
And I started this section talking about Glory, the movie Glory, and I end it with The Glory of God. And you guessed it, each of these has been discussed at one time or another on our podcasting channel. Bev's 60 down to 51 are...
All right, starting with, I did not pick Manhattan, but I did pick Hannah and Her Sisters.
Good choice.
You also picked this, His Girl Friday, great comedy. HUD is on my list as well, and right next to that, alphabetically, is The Hustler. Another great Paul Newman performance.
That'll come up later.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which I think I like more for its influence on future films and the ideas that it introduced, but I did enjoy the 56 version. Jerry Maguire, I know that's on your list.
It is.
Jurassic Park. Kramer versus Kramer, L.A. Confidential, and another one I know you love, The Lady Eve.
Yep. I'm going to hear some more of those later on. I'll say it again. My 60 countdown to 51 are what I'm calling The Kids Are Not All Right. We've got 2 John Hughes flicks that still ring true for me, even at 51 years old, even though they're about teenagers. The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. There's also more 80s awesomeness in Amy Heckerling's Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Harry Ford hanging with the Amish in Peter Weir's Witness, and Tom Hanks grown up way too fast in Penny Marshall's Big. So they're all 80s movies. We've also got Judy Garland's classic musical that doesn't feature a yellow brick road and munchkins and wizards and all that stuff. Vincent Minnelli's Meet Me in St. Louis, along with Bob Mitchum terrifying 2 little kids in the only movie that Charles Laughton ever directed, The Night of the Hunter. There's a great one. And the grown-up kids aren't all right, and these three flicks that I love quite a lot. Jack Nicholson cries in front of his dad in Bob Rafelson's moody character study, 5 Easy Pieces. The young people and a mom get right screwed up on drugs in Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream. And I finished this 10-some with Gus Van Sant's Good Will Hunting, the breakout for Damon and Affleck. 8 of these flicks have a home on this channel. I guess we've never sat down, though, to hash out The Breakfast Club.
Oh, wow.
And while we haven't covered 5 Easy Pieces either, I'm going to get to that soon in a solo review, probably in September. Okay, the top 50. You're 50 down to 41.
All right. Starting with The Last Emperor, Last Temptation of Christ.
I didn't include that one. That might have got deleted in my messing with my files.
It's a tough one, but God, it's interesting. It's certainly worth a watch. Laura, you already said that. Beautiful film. Lethal Weapon.
I know that one didn't include it. I should have maybe.
The Lion King. I'm sure that's going to be on your list somewhere. Yep. Mm-hmm. Lost in Translation. I agree with you. Beautiful film. McCabe and Mrs. Miller. Memento. Moonstruck. Oh, Moonstruck. Love you. And Night of the Hunter. What a great film.
I thought Moonstruck would be in your top 10.
Listen, man, 10's not that many movies.
100 is hard to do.
Yeah. It might be, 11 or 12.
This is why I categorized, because I don't think I could have picked out my top 50 without leaving out ones I really, truly love.
And I was also trying to say movies that were influential. There's the movies that you just love so much you have to put them on the list no matter what. And then you have to say, well, if I already have this other rom-com or two on there.
Sure. My 50 down to 41 are 10 remarkable thrillers and or horror movies. One of which is no doubt going to be in Bev's top 10. And all of which have been reviewed by us. Although I just said Moonstruck I thought would be in your top 10. It wasn't. So maybe the one I just mentioned won't be. We'll get to that in a second. In this case, I'll go chronologically, starting with 2 from Alfred Hitchcock, Shadow of a Doubt and Notorious, both of which belong high on anyone's list. We've also got John Wayne playing the obsessed bad guy in Howard Hawks' Western Red River, Robert Wise's sci-fi superclassic The Day the Earth Stood Still, more sci-fi in Don Siegel's 1956 Invasion of the Body Snatchers, although it was arguably one up by the 1978 remake, which is definitely more freaky and even scary.
It's a better film.
And with a great ending. But the 56 one, the influence, all that, you're right. Then we've got 2 from 68. Steve McQueen's cop flick where he races through San Francisco, and that's in Peter Yates' Bullet. I should have made it Lethal Weapon, I guess, actually, if you're going to go cop thrillers. I far prefer Lethal Weapon to Bullet. Bullet's good. And Frank Schaffner directs Charlton Heston to get mad at monkeys in Planet of the Apes. And we conclude this pile of 10 with 3 bona fide horror movies that I love immensely. Brian De Palma's Carrie, John Carpenter's Halloween, and Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Outside of my top 20, this is probably my favorite 10-some.
Well, that's not surprising. Horror is pretty much your favorite genre.
Those 3, Shadow of a Doubt, Notorious. Yeah, great group there, I think.
All right, well, I'm going to start with
with your 40 down to 31.
40 to 31, and that is Night of the Living Dead.
All right.
Then I've got Ninotchka, a movie that I discovered because we watched it for the podcast, and I just adored. Follow that with Ordinary People. God, I love that movie. Paths of Glory, one of my favorite Kubrick films. Planet of the Apes is also on my list. The Player, Pretty Woman, Public Enemy, Rain Man, I know you love that, and Red River as well.
Good choices there. I didn't have Ordinary People. Maybe I should have.
Oh, you left out Ordinary People?
I already did Best Picture winners. I didn't mention it today. I should have.
How dare you?
Maybe I thought because it didn't have enough influence the way the other ones did. Wasn't as big a hit, maybe as Terms of Endearment, for example.
I love that movie.
My 40 down to 31 gets into the world of fantasy. I'll start with 4 cartoons, a few of which were really surprising in not making AFI's lists in 98 or 07. They only had 3 animated films on the 2 lists total, and it was 2 each time. Snow White both times, and it was Toy Story the second time, and Fantasia the first time. But how do they not include Disney's Pinocchio, Beauty and the Beast, and The Lion King? Maybe not all of them, but at least 1 or 2 of them. And then Pixar's funny fish flick, Finding Nemo. In those 4, we've got a talking puppet, a talking teacup, a talking Timon, and a talking toucan, so fantasy. That's why I put them in this category.
Fair.
Unless you believe Santa Claus is real, then I can and will include the Christmas classic, George Seaton's Miracle on 34th Street. I prefer A Christmas Story, but this is more influential, I think, in general, and more famous. Christmas Story is getting there, though, I think, the last maybe decade. Buster Keaton's comedy tomfoolery, Sherlock Jr., belongs on this list, too, since he literally goes into a movie. That's a fantasy. And these last 4 could just as easily be in my top 10, or top 20 anyway. Irvin Kershner's, well, George Lucas, I guess, but Irvin Kershner directed The Empire Strikes Back, Jim Cameron's Terminator 2, Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park, and, whoa, The Matrix by, of course, the Wachowskis. Yep, we have gabbed about all of these in reviews on this channel, and that's an excellent group of 10, especially the last 4.
If they made the list again, I bet all those animated films. The Lion King, 100%. I bet it would be in the top 50.
Yeah.
All right.
You're 30 to 21.
Starting with Requiem for a Dream, which you mentioned. Risky Business. Rosemary's Baby, horror classic, which I didn't hear on your horror list, which means I'm probably going to hear it later.
No.
No? What? You left off Rosemary's Baby?
I struggle with that one. I think it's probably worthy, but I don't like it enough.
Okay, that's why it's not in my top 10. I don't know if I would put it in top 10 anyway, but wow, I'm surprised. Rushmore, got a little Wes Anderson in there. No. I know you don't like it. Sense and Sensibility, one that we just recently covered. Ang Lee, that's second Ang Lee on the list. Sex, Lies, and Videotape, wasn't that long ago that we covered this one. A great indie film. Shadow of a Doubt, you mentioned that, one of my favorite Hitchcock films. Shakespeare in Love. Yes, it deserved Best Picture. Everybody get over it.
I like it. Didn't include it, but I like it.
Shrek. Another fantasy, another animated one.
I brought that one out.
Highly influential. I mean, come on.
Shrek.
Yeah, legendary.
That might have got erased accidentally. I forget now.
And Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, good choice, too.
Getting the superheroes represented here.
Shakespeare in Love. I think we said this in another podcast recently, but we saw that again when you were laid up with your foot surgery. We were in the bedroom and we watched it on, I think, Netflix. We hadn't seen it in quite a few years, and it's still funny and still cool. And I had to replay that line where it's, well, there's this nurse. We heard it. I laughed. Got to play it again and laugh all over again. My own 30 down to 21 are what I'm calling the athletic people. Some of these are dubious, but I included them to work with my Group of 10 theme. Plus, they are athletic in a dancey kind of way. So the dubious ones to put in this section, I'll go with these first, are Travolta's musical/dance flicks, John Badham's Saturday Night Fever, and Randall Kleiser's Grease. I'm also including the sword fighting and joie de vivre of Errol Flynn and Michael Curtiz's The Adventures of Robin Hood. And I'm putting John Singleton's Boys in the Hood in here because Ricky does play football.
Okay.
I needed 10 movies and I was struggling. We've also got John Ford's The Quiet Man because John Wayne does play a boxer and he and Victor McLaglen duke it out for quite a long time at the end of the movie. Marcus of Queensberry. Leaving me with 5 true sports movies, all of which are wonderful. And if I wasn't grouping like I am, the last 4 would rank even higher than effectively the top 30, where we are right now. And they are the Lou Gehrig biopic by Sam Wood, The Pride of the Yankees, Tom Cruise's most soulful work ever, I think, in Cameron Crowe's Jerry Maguire, Gene Hackman as the tough basketball coach in David Anspaugh's Hoosiers, and the 2 greatest baseball movies of all time that both star Kevin Costner and came out a year apart, Bull Durham and Field of Dreams, directed by Ron Shelton and Phil Robinson. And Chris and I reviewed Jerry Maguire, Hoosiers, and Field of Dreams on Scoring at the Movies, but the rest of these all have a home on Have You Ever Seen? All right, you're 20 down to 11.
All right.
Really nitty-gritty now.
Oh, yeah. Starting with Stand By Me, Rob Reiner's Stand By Me. Another Hitchcock, Strangers on a Train. I didn't do Notorious, but I did do Strangers on a Train. I do love that one. Mm-hmm. Sweet Smell of Success, another one that you introduced me to.
Stand By.
Doesn't fit many of the criteria because it was a bit of a failure. But if you haven't seen it, listener, watch that movie. God,
more than most
it's a
of these,
banger.
Really.
Yeah. Ten Commandments, I agree with you. Ten Commandments belongs on the list. Surprised that it never made either of them. Terminator 2, Judgment Day, I got that as well. Terms of Endearment, Thelma and Louise, of course. You know I was going to pick that. There's Something About Mary. This is Spinal Tap. And Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. That did make my list. It didn't make yours, but...
I mentioned it, though, earlier.
Yeah, I got an honorable mention.
What were the first 2 or 3 you mentioned? Say them again.
They were Stand By Me.
Yeah, I don't think I included Stand By Me. What? I should have. I say again, maybe I accidentally deleted it. I do have 2 or 3 Rob Reiners in here, though.
There is a kind of bias between your list and my list, which is you've seen every single one of these movies and I haven't.
Yeah.
And of the movies I haven't seen, almost all of them are the older movies. Man, when I was making this list, I was starting to panic that I wasn't going to be able to get to 100 until I reached about the 70s, and then, yes.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen so many of these films. So there's going to be a bias for me in favor of more recent films, which means that movies are going to make my list that wouldn't make yours because they're edged out by an older
Well, I'm
film.
sure most of my movies, or more than half my movies, are newish, at least, since I was born. It's what everyone does usually. Well, not the AFI people, because they voted for too many, especially the comedies list. I know it's not the AFI list we're talking about now, but when they did their top 100 comedies, we've said this probably thousands of times in this podcast over the years, most of the movies were old. They're not funny anymore. Some of them are. I'm going to mention that before this podcast is over about some of the ones that are still, but His Girl Friday, yes, and some other ones I'm going to mention soon. But what are you doing? These movies are... Anyway, let's go on. All right, my top 20 down to 11. And maybe I got away from the AFI's criteria in ranking some of these so high, but this distinguished group of 10 motion pictures are just among my all-time faves, and most of them do belong, I think, anyway. Maybe not the first one by the criteria, but I start with Michel Gondry doing it so right, you said it already, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which we watched again, I think on my birthday this year. I think I've seen that movie 6, 8, maybe even 10 times now. There's great crime stuff going on, and Jimmy Cagney gets to go nuts in Raoul Walsh's White Heat. And here's something I'm due to watch again soon. We should watch it again soon. Sidney Lumet's Dog Day Afternoon. Movies don't get much funnier than what Rob Reiner and his acting buddies did with This Is Spinal Tap. And they don't get much more intense than what John Boorman did with his actors in Deliverance. If you're not a fan of Ivan Reitman's Ghostbusters for its brilliance at being both good at comedy and horror, then we probably can't be friends. Maybe, but probably not. I also think that comic book movies have rarely been any better than what Tim Burton brought to the table in the 1989 Batman. I don't know if a lot of people still agree with me on that one, but I still love it. I covered it last year. I think it's one of the great ones. Docudramas might have peaked with Ron Howard's Apollo 13. If it's not the best docudrama, it's certainly in the top something. And prison dramas might have peaked with Stu Rosenberg's Cool Hand Luke. Okay, Shawshank, but it's one of the best. Cool Hand Luke. Another Paul Newman. Meaning that the one I almost put in my top 10, but ended up bumping out, was Alexander McKendrick's McKendrick? I don't know how you say his name. Takedown of gossip journalism, sweet smell of success. Match me, Sydney, one of the greatest lines in film history. And yes, Virginia, we have covered all those movies.
I didn't put Cool Hand Luke on my list.
Really?
I'm just not that impressed by a man who can eat 50 eggs. I don't know what to tell you.
Get out them damn eggs!
I put Hot and the Hustler. My favorite thing about Cool Hand Luke is that Paul Newman is basically allergic to shirts.
I think the movie's really entertaining considering it's about road gangs and about awful things. He's tortured. I love that movie. Now, before we get to our top 10 list, I'll say one quick thing here. I should mention these 6 flicks we reviewed, but I don't happen to like them as much as others do, so I couldn't include them in the 100. But I can't deny they have qualifications set up by the AFI, and they are Sleepless in Seattle, the 1954 A Star is Born, which I'm a little surprised didn't make the list, actually, considering what they look for, Love Story, that fave of middle-aged dads, Gladiator, Rosemary's Baby, and sorry, Bev, Moonstruck.
Stuff your stories in a sack, buddy.
Well, that wasn't on, or won't be in your top 10.
No.
I thought it would. Okay, so Bev's top 10 will be coming up here, although you won't just list 10 straight movies. You do your number 10, then I'll do my number 10.
Yeah.
You do number 9, I'll do number 9, and so on. So your top 10 movie of all time, based on the AFI's nominated movies from 98 and 07, is...
The Matrix. Absolutely iconic film. Easily fits the AFI criteria. You know, it was massively influential, especially in special effects innovations. Anyone who was around back then can attest you couldn't escape bullet time for like the next 5 to 10 years. It's both a time capsule of the late 90s and a prophetic glimpse into the future where AI is now reaching a tipping point and we're all kind of looking at the world and longingly looking at those blue pills. At least I know I am.
Let me be the guy that's ignorant.
It's blue pill, baby, blue pill.
Now, my top 10, number 10 specifically, all the movies I've got here we reviewed, of course, and I should note that in most of the cases, I did in fact factor in with these now the AFI criteria of critical recognition, awards, cultural impact, popularity over time, and historical significance, plus just happening to like all these very much personally. That's why my top 10 doesn't include Field of Dreams or T2 or The Empire Strikes Back, for instance. They've got those things. I think these 10 have even more. So number 10, The Great Escape. John Sturges was never given enough credit for directing this, Magnificent Seven, Bad Day at Black Rock, Gunfight at OK Corral, one of my favorites, Last Train from Gun Hill even. In The Great Escape, he made one of the most fun war movies, and he did that without turning it into a comedy like Stalag 17 or Life is Beautiful, which is fine, but he made a movie that's fun and also pretty intense. People die, but it's undeniably enjoyable, and for a 3-hour movie, it flies by. You've got that famous music score, that dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, and Magnificent Seven has the other great famous music score, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Elmer Bernstein and John Sturges, 2 of the greatest scores of all time in 2 movies in the span of 3 years. You got Steve McQueen's iconic motorcycling. This is one of the best examples of teamwork ever put on film. The likes of Attenborough, Garner, Coburn, Pleasance, and Bronson are just perfect in their roles. I haven't watched this one since we reviewed it, I don't think anyway, all those years ago, something like, I think 2016 we covered it, but I feel like I know it in great detail, even if it's been so long since I've seen it. Plus, when you talk about lines that repeat around the house far too often because I just love saying them, we should never forget, shower, I need the whoosh.
I might be ready to forget that line.
I'm never going to forget it. I love it. Need the whoosh. All right, your number 9.
My number 9, and I suspect I'm going to hear this from you soon, is Die Hard. This is another pick that very easily qualifies under the AFI's own criteria. It was nominated for 4 technical Oscars. It was a huge hit. It spawned a franchise, dozens of imitators, turned Bruce Willis into an A-list movie star, introduced the world to Alan Rickman. Culturally, it's had massive staying power. This movie is a touchstone for a whole generation. It has become an unlikely Christmas classic. The Smithsonian houses John McClane's tattered tank top. The omission of Die Hard from the AFI's Top 100 really is a generational divide, in my opinion, and it would probably easily make the list now that Gen X is more represented.
This will come up again, and I didn't write that exactly the way you just did, but I'll be repeating a lot of what you just said. Almost verbatim as I'm guessing.
Unfortunately, that was inevitable.
Yeah. Well, my number 9 is Memento. I cheated a little by not only including this on my list today, because Chris Nolan's masterpiece doesn't really have the requirements the AFI went by, but this is one of the seminal theatrical experiences I've ever had. I heard about the backward narrative that this movie had, and that if you missed anything by going to the washroom, getting some popcorn, you'd be lost, so I stayed in my chair and didn't move. In fact, not only was it me that didn't get up, I don't think anybody else got up either. I was somewhat watching the aisle. I didn't see anybody else leave the whole time. Guy Pearce never became a huge star like he should have after LA Confidential and then this in 4 years. But he's always been good at being an everyman in these thrillers. These two and a lot of others, The Proposition, great Western he was in. Joey Pants and Carrie-Anne Moss are good too. And what stays with me the most is the story Nolan's telling. In the end, or is it the beginning, Leonard is deliberately lying to himself. And we don't know how much he's lying to us about what he does and does not remember. In the real world, forget movies, just our real world, people lie to themselves all the time and make up their own narratives on social media. So if anything, Nolan's story is even more relevant today than it was in 2001. Although yes, most guys who make up stuff don't go around murdering people and blaming it on their brain condition. So maybe it shouldn't be in the top 10, but it is anyway.
No, I think you make a very good case. And it launched the career of one of the biggest directors of his generation.
Yep.
I'm not really a fan, but I am always deeply impressed. All right.
Number 8.
My number 8 is the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay.
How many movies can you name that you honestly think the world would be a different place and probably a worse place without this film? How do you ever measure the impact of Rocky Horror? It was and still is a beacon of light for a huge group of people who need it more than I can really imagine. I love it because it's a blast, because the songs are bangers, because it's hysterical and Tim Curry is a gift from heaven. But I'm also just full of gratitude that Rocky Horror exists for all the people that really need it.
Yeah, I respect it. That's why I mentioned it earlier, because I thought it was probably worthy, but I just didn't include it. Those midnight screenings, everything, yeah. Rocky Horror, can't deny its influence especially, and its legacy. Those two big things. In my number 8 spot, I've got Alien. It's hard to believe that Ridley Scott only had Blade Runner on the 2007 list, and nothing else on either of them. Thelma and Louise and Gladiator were obviously eligible, since we've talked about them already in this episode. But certainly far more egregious is that Alien was ignored. It spawned a franchise, it made Sigourney Weaver a star, it remains one of the coolest and freakiest villains in movie history. The production design, the music, the effects, the haunted house story, it's all as good as it gets. Blade Runner is a great picture, and its influence on other filmmakers like Chris Nolan, who we just talked about, is monumental. But when it comes to Ridley Scott, I'm an Alien guy. And for the record, Aliens wasn't nominated by the AFI either time in 98 or 07, or we probably would have talked about it already.
We rewatched Aliens recently, and while I like Aliens a lot, rewatching it just reminded me that Alien truly is the masterpiece.
They're both
I
great.
might have more to say about it a little later.
So you're number 7 then. We'll talk about Alien again.
Number 7 will come as a surprise to nobody, especially not you. Another one of my favorite movies is When Harry Met Sally.
Okay.
It's so simple. The story is really straightforward. A perfect script to study economical storytelling. I always say this. It just boils down to these 4 incredible actors at the height of their powers. Phenomenal script, even better chemistry. And it has the rare grounding in reality for a rom-com. Harry and Sally feel like real, lived-in people with relatable issues and make a refreshingly realistic barrier to their romance. It's as sweet as it is funny, which is saying a lot because it is very funny.
I said all right in a way that maybe sounded like I was being dismissive. I didn't mean it. I actually just thought you were going to have it higher than this. That's why I said it that way.
Well, again, criteria. Because I think When Harry Met Sally is a perfect film. But I have other movies that I don't necessarily like as much that are similar, but were influential.
I'm going to have that same kind of thing going on here. Hey, it's in the top 10. You know the thing about this, too, I think we've said this about the AFI's lists before, that if it was 88, it doesn't really matter if it wasn't 12th. It's mentioned. It's in the group at all.
Yeah.
You're on the team.
This isn't a list of our favorite movies. That would be a very different list. The movies that I like best are going to have a huge advantage, but I am trying to consider the factors.
Yeah. All right, number 7 for me. I'll stick with horror. as I just did with Alien. Only this time it's about a different kind of fantasy than an egg-laying, acid-blooded alien. We're talking about zombies now, and one of the most influential horror movies of all time. They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Wow.
Night of the Living Dead by George Romero.
Wow.
Because of the influence as much as anything, really. Other than Dwayne Jones, the acting isn't very good. We have to go get him. Johnny is out there. We have to go get him. And the production quality isn't all that much better. But the influence on low-budget horror movies made by people who aren't in the industry, which they weren't, and its influence on this subgenre, which it basically invented. Zombies have been around in the 40s, I think, or even the 30s, but not like this. It's undeniable. Now, since I've probably seen it 8, 9, 10 times, it doesn't have as much of a scare factor anymore, but it does remain odd and creepy, as does the remake, 1990 remake, underrated, Tom Savini, good movie too. It's also got one of the greatest and bleakest endings of all time, which when I first saw it, I did not see coming, and it's that, as much as anything, that stands out to me personally. Just, what? And I won't say if people haven't seen it yet. You probably have. It's free on YouTube, I think. I think it always has been.
Yeah.
But I had to put it here because of the influence on the genre and how famous it is and all the rest of those kinds of factors. I do love it, too. It's flawed, but it belongs here, I think.
That's fair. I think another way it's influential, speaking of it being on YouTube, is that it's the horror story that every production manager thinks of when they're remembering to copyright their film, because it was just basically an oversight that they never copyrighted it properly. Copyrighted.
It's wonderful
properly.
life benefit from that, too, though, because that's one reason why it was shown on public access, wherever it's TV.
And maybe part of the reason why Night of the Living Dead is so influential is because so many people could just watch it for free, because it went immediately into the public domain. Number 6 is the rom-com I was referring to when I was talking about where I placed When Harry Met Sally, and that is Groundhog Day. It's a movie that's really easy to underestimate because it hung out being amazing for decades before people started acknowledging it as the low-key, perfect film that it is. It's executed so smoothly and unfolds so organically. I think people enjoy it too much to recognize the genius of it. The film makes it look easy. For a movie that's literally all about repetition, it's rewatchable as hell. And the list of imitators is so long that it's almost a genre of its own.
Including Edge of Tomorrow, which we covered last year, and so many others. You're going to hear this one again. All right, just missing out on my top 5, so it's number 6, is Robert Roston's The Hustler. It's his greatest sports movie as there's ever been. Although I guess I could have put Field of Dreams or Bull Durham up here because I do watch them more than I do The Hustler. I think I prefer them more than The Hustler. I just think the one that made Paul Newman a major star needs to be in my top 10 more than those two movies do. Just like Alien and a few others I'll get to before we're done today, I'm absolutely amazed that this didn't make AFI's cut. The pool is fantastic, and there's a lot of it, unlike Raging Bull and even Rocky, where there isn't that much boxing, for example. Pride of the Yankees, I think, is 3rd or 4th or something on their sports list, right? They did the genres list, and the sports category was, I think, Raging Bull, Rocky, I think Pride of the Yankees, and Hustler was in there too, but there's a lot more pool than there is those other sports. I think that's important. But the story is, in the end, about people. They're very flawed alcoholics, but it's fascinating to watch them struggle through life, Paul Newman and Piper Laurie, and to compromise as well. They have to compromise. This movie is so much about that. That's a huge theme. And while Night of the Living Dead's ending is certainly darker, The Hustler's last few minutes between Newman and George C. Scott, you owe me money! Of course, there's a sequel, Color of Money, which is more fun than The Hustler, but that is a tough ending in a great way. You're number 5. We're in the top 5 now.
All right. This one I don't think you're going to agree with, but my number 5 is In Cold Blood.
Oh, I think it's a great movie.
Oh, okay, all right. It's a bold, unconventional film that uses modern techniques to great effect. I mean, modern at the time. It came out in 1967. The performances are outstanding. It doesn't pull its punches. It really challenged audiences and our convictions in a messy, unsettling way. And it's just also a really gripping thriller. Great edited film.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Not short, but well edited. Yeah, Richard Brooks directed that so well. Great film. Truman Capote's book.
The influence naturally came probably more from the book than the movie, but if you look at the genesis of true crime, it starts with In Cold Blood.
Mm-hmm. All right, so now that we're in the top 5, I'll go with one that someone could argue doesn't have the chops to be this high, but I think it's got the staying power and just how beloved it's become. Those are reasons to put it here. Just like I'm sure millions of other people do. I watch this every year, and it's got that Shawshank Redemption or It's a Wonderful Life quality of being liked in its day, even Wizard of Oz, liked in their day, but beloved in the decades since. And it's Groundhog Day. Harold Ramis's comedy is not really even as funny as you might remember it. The first half it is, but the second half not so funny. But Bill Murray proved he could be just as incredible a dramatic actor as he could a comic one. And for a comedy that's also a love story with Rita, the Andie MacDowell character, it's remarkably profound. what is it, the Buddhists think this is a great movie? Especially the sequence where he tries to save the old man's life and realizes he just can't do it when he looks up at, I'm going to break up right now. When he looks up at the sky, oh my God, that kills me. So we'll watch Groundhog Day again next February 2nd, as we do every single year. We did this past year. I've watched it without you lots of times. But we'll rent to start. Let's live here. We'll rent to start.
Yeah, I didn't mention it when I was talking about it, but the way it uses its premise so beautifully, it doesn't have to be that thoughtful, but it is.
Yeah, Palm Springs is another one that's recent. The Andy Samberg movie takes the same thing.
My favorite
one of the better ones.
Other Groundhog Day genre
and
movies.
Edge of Tomorrow, I already said, does it too.
Yeah, brilliant.
Number 4 for Bev.
All right, my number 4, Alien. There's just no denying, first of all, the cultural impact of Alien. Almost 50 years later, and the franchise is still going strong. Eleanor Ripley is widely considered one of the greatest heroes in cinema.
Ellen Ripley, not Eleanor, but okay.
Yeah, not. Ellen Ripley, I always do that. This jump-started the career of Ridley Scott, who went on to create many classics of many genres. And it introduced the world to the art of Giger. The design of the monster is incredible, and it just goes so hard. Every frame is perfect. It's a horror masterpiece. I believe the only reason that this didn't make the AFI list is because the Institute has a clear bias against horror.
Yeah, this and another one I'm going to mention in a few minutes, I think are 2 of the 3 or 4. I guess I'll say this a few times yet before we're done today. The ones I cannot believe didn't make it. Even more than The Hustler. The Hustler surprises me and a lot of others. But that one and a few others we're going to say, what? How did they not get the votes either time? The Sting is another one I think I'm surprised about. Based on their criteria alone, let alone what I think about it. And I do love it too. I raved about Groundhog Day a minute ago, so I'll stick with comedy in the number 4 spot. And it's Preston Sturges's very best work, The Lady Eve. I don't think any movie from the 30s, 40s, or 50s is funnier than this. With Henry Fonda doing pratfalls and being so adorably gaga about cucumber cool Barbara Stanwyck that he doesn't even realize that she's positively the same dame. I've seen this a couple of times since we reviewed it, which means I've probably watched it 6 or 7 times in total now, and I still laugh at it. She drops the apple on his head on the boat. That's funny. Him pratfalling over that couch, the ottoman, is funny. Many of the best comedies, especially ones from the early days of cinema, don't continue to be LOL funny many years later, though. But this does. Plus, it's a terrific love story, even if a con woman does get away with her con. But does Henry Fonda care? Nope. Because in the end, he's got his dame. Positively. Number 3 for Bev.
All right, here's another one you may not agree with me about. My number 3 is Blue Velvet.
Okay.
How do you make a list of great American films without including David Lynch? Not just one of the greatest American filmmakers in history, one of the greatest American artists, period. Mm-hmm. Hard to narrow down what his greatest film was, but it's usually between Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive. If Mulholland Drive was on this list, I would have placed it above Blue Velvet, but I think there's definitely an argument to be made that Blue Velvet is his best film. It has all the Lynch hallmarks. It's suburbia with a dark secret, strange, phony melodrama performances devolving into a nightmare. It's so twisted and compelling and totally one of a kind.
I respect the hell out of it, and it's probably more rewatchable than Mulholland Drive is, because it's more straightforward.
Yes.
Mulholland's
more
a
conventional.
Great film.
Yeah. Blue Velvet is far more accessible, and that's saying a lot because it's not a very accessible film.
For Lynch.
Especially considering, Eraserhead is such a Lynch movie, but Blue Velvet is far more the blueprint for the type of stuff he went on to create.
Yeah, including, of course, Twin Peaks on television.
Oh, yeah.
For my number 3, we're going back to horror again. Horror. And then omitting this one is as inexplicable as any other, I think, today, including Alien, or Hustler, a lot of ones we've said. And it's Billy Friedkin's The Exorcist. It was and still is, when you adjust for inflation, one of the biggest hits of all time, period, in America. It won awards, it remains influential, and while it isn't as scary as it once was, it's still very effective. Ellen Burstyn was nominated for Best Actress, but I think she should have won that year, considering she has to anchor a story about demonic possession, and she really does. She's incredible in it. Linda Blair was nominated too for Best Supporting Actress, but she never got enough kudos for playing Reagan, the little girl, partly because Mercedes McCambridge overshadowed her doing the voice of Pazuzu, but Linda Blair's got to do the physical stuff and on-camera stuff, and she's fantastic. The whole cast is great. Friedkin was a maniac when he made movies in the 70s, but look at the results with this, The French Connection, which made the list, and Sorcerer, which we just saw recently, I've seen before, you've never had before. This, though, was the best thing he ever did, and I'm very surprised this and Alien and a few others. How? At least one of those 2 times didn't make the list.
Their bias is horror and comedy, but they're much easier in comedy than horror.
They had some horror, but not a lot. Yeah. You're number 2.
Right, I have a feeling that we're going to hear this from you soon, too, because it is Back to the Future. So this hits easily all the AFI criteria. It was a hit. It spawned 2 sequels. It had a huge cultural impact, and many details in it have become common shorthand for time travel DeLoreans. It's frequently quoted. It's still massively popular. It was nominated for several Oscars. It won for special effects.
Sound effects.
Oh, I thought it was...
There's not that many visual effects in that movie, considering it's thought of that way.
That's true. The score is iconic.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, I suspect that if you were polling people born in the 70s, this would make the top 10. It's probably the best movie ever made about a guy who almost accidentally porks his teenage mom.
My number 2. Well, I've been highlighting a lot of horror and comedy in this top 10, but now I'm going to go with an action movie. You said it already. The favorite of Joey Tribbiani and millions of others just like him. Let's watch it again. It's John McTiernan's Die Hard 2. Die Hard. No, sorry. It's Die Hard. I'm thinking about in Friends, right? They want to watch another movie. Let's watch Die Hard again. So, no, Die Hard. The first. I like the second one, but the first Die Hard. It's probably the most universally beloved action movie ever. Christmas staple, even though Bruce Willis doesn't think so, but it is. Just like Groundhog Day, It's a Wonderful Life, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, for that matter, I watch certain times a year. That's Thanksgiving, Groundhog Day, obviously, Wonderful Life, Die Hard, Christmas time. We know Bruce Willis became a huge star after that, but it also put Alan Rickman on the map. It's a little too long. There's a few too many scenes with the cops outside Nakatomi Tower.
One too many B-plots, yeah.
But the story is so entertaining and thrilling that doesn't even really matter. It was a hit. It spawned a franchise, just like so many of my other top 10 films did. And when we talk about influential and a long-lasting legacy, Die Hard's certainly on the short list for that. Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon. Okay, so we didn't really have a trivia thing. I didn't even mention it before, by the way, but I said last week about what would be number 1. What do people think would be number 1? I guess I know what yours is.
I'm so obvious.
I knew it'd be in the
so
top
easy.
10. I didn't know it'd be number 1. And if you know me, you know my number 1 is, but go ahead. Your number 1 is...
It's The Shining,
Boom.
baby! Of course, any regular listener is not surprised to hear this pick from me. The Shining is my favorite movie. I mean, I have hundreds of favorite movies, but The Shining, I don't know. It has a shortcut to my subconscious. It does something to me. It's everything I love about cinema. It's intense, it's thrilling, it's beautiful to look at, it's rich with meaning, but it's also really enigmatic. I've loved this film for decades, and I've never run out of insights or rocks to turn over.
Yeah, it may not be a perfect documentary, it's certainly not, but Room 237, gotta see that documentary, because there's some crackpot theories, but they're still interesting. It's a documentary all about people that think what the movie's really about.
It's comforting to see I'm not the only person that obsesses over The Shining. I'm in good company, and I'm actually relatively sane.
Yeah, it's the movie that didn't make the list, obviously didn't, but more than Spartacus should have.
Oh, the fact that Spartacus is on the list and The Shining is not.
And maybe more than Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, absolutely more than Clockwork Orange.
Okay, so it's number 1 for me.
It's a Back to the Future. Dun, 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 dun.
This one clearly has a legacy and an impact. It was the biggest hit of the year. It won awards. But to personalize this, it might be my number 1 viewing experience ever, at least at home, especially since Jaws and Raiders were on the list, so I can't include those. But I watched this, and even the sequels, pretty much every year. If I watch part 2, I gotta watch part 3. I can't stop there. And I often watch all 3 in the span of about a week or so. And it's Bob Zemeckis' Back to the Future. Other than the year 1982, the AFI didn't have much use for the 80s on those 2 lists. They had Sophie's Choice, E.T., Tootsie, and maybe 2 others. But otherwise, the 80s were just ignored almost entirely. But I've got 2 from that decade in my top 2 spots, this and Die Hard, and 3 more in my top 20. Now, I am 51 years old, grew up in the 80s, that makes some sense, although I do prefer the 90s as a decade. But does the 80s get much more 80s than Back to the Future? It's just about the perfect movie, and when you talk about entertainment value, it's a 15 out of 10. John Mulaney's bit about Marty and his mom is funny, but of course he's wrong. She wants him. And when she kisses him, she realizes it's like kissing my brother, and she ends up with his father like she's supposed to. She goes, shut up, John. But no, Doc and Marty are one of the greatest teams in cinema history. Of course, it influenced Rick and Morty. That's where that came from. Doc, Marty, Doc. The special effects, the sound design, the music, the editing are all world class. Of course, the performances are all bang on, and those 2 guys in the lead roles especially. It's also funny to think that Ridley Scott had Blade Runner and not Alien on the AFI list. Preston Sturges had Sullivan's Travels and not The Lady Eve on the AFI list. And Friedkin had The French Connection and not The Exorcist on the list. But hey, I'm going to throw a curveball at you here because I don't think Zemeckis should have had Back to the Future on the list and not Forrest Gump. He should have had both.
I mean, that's not a curveball. We know how much you love Forrest Gump. I'm like, he's not going to advocate to take Forrest Gump off the list.
But Back to the Future.
But what would you place higher?
Back to the Future.
Wow.
Although Gump would certainly be there.
Yeah, I agree. Back to the Future is a better movie.
So that was 100, well, more than 100, I guess, because we didn't have all the same ones, but 100 plus movies that we thought were the best of the ones that didn't make the AFI's list, the not quite 100 list. And there are some outstanding movies, at least 50 that are, probably more than 50 really from each of us, that are bona fide classics. And they had, I should have looked at this too, the ones I knew you'd say top, not Swing Time, and many others.
I was just going to say, we need to make the list of 10 movies we would
Maybe we'll do that one of these days.
Strip off the list right away. Oh, yeah. There are some real stinkers on that list.
Any last thoughts?
You're welcome for us finally telling you what the best movies are.
Not that timely. We did the list.
We are the authorities on this.
We did it before anyone else did. Before we wrap, this is a little addition to the show that I'm recording about a week after the initial recording, because I got curious about the numbers. So to start, how many movies did we each put on our lists? Meaning, Bev had the same movie that I did. Well, it was 60, including having 4 of the same ones in our top 10s. Alien, Groundhog Day, Die Hard, and Back to the Future. I guess that means we had 140 films in total between the two of us. I also got curious about which actors and directors we put on these lists. Who had the most movies? How many people did we acknowledge who weren't part of the 1998 or 2007 editions? And my exhaustive research went even further than that. We'll get into that in a few minutes. I really got in the weeds in this thing. But to start with, let's talk about the newbies. Our lists included big names who weren't on either the 1998 or 2007 lists, and all of these had just a single film on one or both of our lists. And they were Arnold Schwarzenegger, Robert Mitchum. Is that right? I feel like Mitchum must have been on there somewhere, but I didn't see his name. I don't think he was. Cher, Errol Flynn, Gene Tierney, William Powell, Carol Lombard, Mark Wahlberg, Harold Lloyd, Marlena Dietrich, Denzel Washington, Scarlett Johansson, and Robin Williams. As for a different category now, so these are actors who won Academy Awards at one time or another. Some of these people won a couple. Maybe not for the movies on our lists, though. But they weren't part of the previous AFI lists, so that's a very specific group here. And they got also on our lists exactly 2 times. Well, these award winners were Joan Crawford, William Hurt, Laura Dern, Nicolas Cage, Renee Zellweger, Sean Penn, they won 2 Oscars apiece, Kim Basinger, Russell Crowe, another 2-time winner, Jane Fonda. How did she not make the first list? And then 2 guys who each won 2 Oscars for things other than acting, Mel Gibson and Ben Affleck. Now, as for Oscar winners who were in fact represented on one of the previous AFI lists, or maybe both of them, but happened to end up on our lists a couple of times too, we had names like Henry Fonda, Tom Hanks, Dustin Hoffman, Jimmy Cagney, Meryl Streep, John Wayne, Jon Voight, Burt Lancaster, Ellen Burstyn, Robert De Niro, Kirk Douglas, who won an honorary Oscar, but I'm counting it, and then Kevin Costner and Robert Redford, who won trophies for directing, not acting. In fact, they infamously both beat out Marty Scorsese in the years of Raging Bull and Goodfellas. Costner even won for producing Dances with Wolves the night he won for directing. Getting back to the idea of big names who weren't part of the 1998 or 2007 AFI lists, so newbies again, but they were in 2 films on our lists. And these are not Oscar winners, by the way. We've got Steve McQueen. How did he not have a film on the list? I don't think he did. Eddie Murphy, same thing. Greta Garbo, same thing. So McQueen, Murphy, Garbo, Richard Gere, Donald Sutherland, Mia Farrow, Billy Crystal, Kevin Bacon, Sigourney Weaver, and whoa, Keanu Reeves. Now, as for actors who got to be on the AFI's list at least once, but had 3 films recognized by us this time, there's 3 Star Wars veterans: Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, James Earl Jones. Plus we've got Cary Grant, not a Star Wars actor, Jeff Goldblum, Albert Brooks, Dennis Hopper, Willem Dafoe, John Travolta, and Charlton Heston. Grant, Ford, and Hopper were already in 3 or 4 flicks in some cases on the actual AFI lists, so we basically doubled their totals. But these big names weren't part of the festivities in 98 or 07, yet they were in 3 flicks that we honored. Names like Julia Roberts, Burt Reynolds, Maureen O'Hara, Matthew Broderick, Cameron Diaz, Brad Pitt. Again, didn't have a movie on the list. I don't think he did. Glenn Close, Harold Ramis, who acted, wrote, and directed 3 films we highlighted, but I included him here because he was an actor sometimes too. He was an actor in Ghostbusters and a small role in Groundhog Day. And then Tom Cruise, who wasn't recognized the first time but 3 times by us. And then there's this quartet who were in 4 flicks on our lists. Susan Sarandon, who wasn't on the other 2 lists at all, I don't think. Bill Murray and Paul Newman, both of whom were in 1 movie on those lists. Plus I'll throw in character actor Joey Pants. Joe Pantoliano was in 4 movies that we honor today. But the biggest standout of all is a man who was part of 3 films on the AFI's lists those first 2 times, but we had him in 5 more. And that's Jack Nicholson, my man, Jack Nicholson, with 5 easy pieces: The Shining, Terms of Endearment, Broadcast News, and Batman. As for the directors, our Not Quite 100 lists included names that weren't invited to the party in 98 or 07, like Wes Anderson, Cecil B. DeMille. He acted in Sunset Boulevard, but he didn't direct anything on the first 2 lists, their lists. Sofia Coppola, Christopher Nolan, David Lynch, John Singleton, and Richard Brooks. We also got Mel Brooks involved with 2 films and James L. Brooks with 4, having directed 2 and having produced 2 more. Plus there were a couple each for Ang Lee, Steven Soderbergh, Don Siegel, John Hughes, and 3 for Rob Reiner. Now those are the directors who were not honored on the actual AFI lists, but these people were, and we added some more in movies. Stanley Kubrick had 4 the first times, and then 2 more that we added. We also added 2 more for Billy Wilder, Howard Hawks, Robert Altman, Woody Allen, and 3 more for Hitch, Marty, and Ridley. So that's Alfred Hitchcock, Martin Scorsese, and Ridley Scott. And those are the numbers that I spent most of the past week crunching. Okay then, so that was how we saw the AFI's Not Quite 100 list. We'll be back next week with a review of yet another Brad Pitt movie. We've done a lot of those, but it'll be our very first Angelina Jolie movie, and that's the main reason we're covering it, because we've never covered it before. Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So the coming attractions opinion question for The Smiths. Angelina Jolie is a major star, and she's been in a lot of big hits, but the critics have often pooped on her output. She has something like 17 splats on Rotten Tomatoes and only about 14 fresh rankings. Maybe Rotten Tomatoes doesn't include every movie because it feels like she's made more than that, but that's what I glanced at. Anyway, so take a look at all the splats that she has and tell me which one you like the best. Where are they the most wrong of their splats?
All right, so our answers to that question, tune in to next week's episode about Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to favorite or subscribe. We've got hundreds of episodes available for you to check out, including a lot of the movies we just talked about. And if you like us and you'd like to support the podcast, the best way you can do that is by leaving us a rating and a review. You can also support the podcast by going to sparkplug.coffee/HYES for freshly roasted premium coffee, and that HYES will get you a one-time 20% discount. You can also find us on YouTube. Our channel is at HYES Ellis, and we'd love to hear from you. There's a few ways to find us, starting with Twitter. I'm at Bev Ellis Ellis, and Ryan is at MovieFiend51. We're also on Blue Sky. You can find us as Bev Ellis Ellis and Ryan-Ellis, and our email address is haveyoueverseenpodcast@gmail.com.
2 things I should say at the very end I should have said before. One is that I didn't mention this is episode number 679. Also, for us Canadians, it's the Civic Holiday. Yay!
Hey, it's Simcoe Day, only in Ontario.
Other parts of the country
Other provinces
called something else.
Because everybody just wants a long weekend in August.
And I'm off today, too, so that's nice. I get to enjoy the
Cheers.
sun, we hope, anyway. So to end, I'll say no matter how we rank these movies and no matter if people agree with our choices or not or where we put them, you just went alphabetical, but your top 10 they could argue with. To quote Jodie Foster, who co-hosted the AFI special in '98, what a collection.
And cut.